Have you ever felt that moment, Leo, when you open your mouth to speak English and suddenly nothing comes out?
Ugh, Mia, every English learner knows that feeling. It's like hitting a mental wall. A wall means stopping suddenly or becoming stuck right when you need to talk.
Exactly. You have all the grammar rules in your head, you know the vocabulary, but when it's time to order a coffee or talk to a coworker, your brain just freezes.
The worst kind of brain freeze, you know?
It is. And today, we are going to fix that. We are talking about how to unlock that speaking ability, especially using a simple, everyday trick: practicing while walking.
That sounds perfect. A moving practice session. Hi, everyone. I'm Mia.
And I'm Leo. Welcome to the English Blend. We're here to make learning English natural and friendly.
Today's topic is super practical. Practice speaking while walking. We want to help you get your point across without worrying about perfection.
Exactly. So grab your metaphorical walking shoes or maybe just a comfortable chair and let's get started.
Let's dive right in with the core issue, Mia. Why do people freeze? I think it often comes down to confusing two different ideas: fluency and accuracy.
That's a brilliant starting point. We need to define those. Simply, what is fluency in our context?
Fluency is about flow, right? It's the ability to keep talking without huge pauses. It means the conversation moves forward.
Yes. Think of a river. If the river flows smoothly, that's fluency. It might have a few small rocks, a few small mistakes, but the water keeps moving.
That's a great analogy. Fluency is focusing on communication, not perfection. Can you understand me? Can I understand you? If yes, you are fluent enough for that moment.
Now, accuracy. Accuracy is those small rocks in the river. It's about being correct. It means using the right tense, having the perfect preposition, and spelling everything correctly.
And this is where the trouble starts, right? Learners often focus 100% on accuracy. They try to apply every single grammar rule before they even say the first word.
They try to construct a perfect sentence in their head like they are writing an academic paper, but they only have 3 seconds to speak.
Exactly. That hesitation, that long pause while checking the third conditional tense, it completely destroys the flow. It kills fluency.
And then the person you are talking to starts looking impatient and you get more nervous, and then you really hit a wall.
That phrase, hit a wall, means you suddenly cannot make progress anymore. Your mind just stops working effectively.
And that's what grammar anxiety does. It makes you hit a wall. You're so worried about the structure that you forget the message.
We need to remember that fluency is communication, not perfection. If you make a mistake, but the listener understands the message, you succeeded. That's the real goal.
Let's talk about why grammar specifically blocks fluency for so many intermediate learners. A2, B1, maybe B2 level.
I think it's because they've learned too many rules recently. They move past the basic survival phase where they just say, me want coffee.
Now they know I should use the present continuous tense because I am actively wanting the coffee right now. But wait, want is a state of verb, so I must use the simple present.
Exactly. All that processing takes up too much cognitive space. It's like trying to calculate complex math problems while running a race. You slow down instantly.
And our goal today is to help people stop calculating and start running, or walking in this case.
Why do you think physical movement, like walking, actually helps with speaking practice? This is the core of our episode title, after all.
It's fascinating, actually. When you walk, your body is doing a repetitive, automatic action. It takes your focus away from the hyper-anxiety of standing still and performing.
So you're relaxing the part of your brain that usually manages your body, and that frees up mental capacity for language production?
Precisely. Also, walking is often a solitary activity. You are outside, maybe listening to a podcast, maybe reviewing your day, but you are not under immediate pressure from another person.
So you can make mistakes when you practice speaking while walking, and nobody is there to judge you. That removes the stress completely.
It's the perfect low-stakes environment for practice. High reward, low risk.
I love that idea. So before we get to the practical steps for walking practice, let me share a quick story about accuracy versus communication.
Please do. We love a good story here on the English Blend.
So a few years ago, I was traveling in Italy. I only knew maybe 10 words of Italian. I was trying to find the train station, La Stazione.
Right. Basic vocabulary.
I stopped an elderly woman and tried to ask her, "Where is the station?" But I completely messed up the verb conjugation and the prepositions. It sounded like I was asking station, train, gone.
Oh dear, a very inaccurate sentence.
Very inaccurate. But here's the key. I used gestures, pointed down the street, and repeated the word treno, train, and stazione with a questioning tone. She understood my meaning, even if the grammar was a disaster.
She absolutely understood. She laughed, corrected my pronunciation of stazione just once, and then pointed me exactly where I needed to go. My message, my core point, got across perfectly.
That's the essence of fluency. You successfully completed the task, getting directions, despite extreme inaccuracy. You got your point across.
Exactly. And that memory really helps me understand that perfect grammar is not the end of the world.
That's a fantastic phrase, not the end of the world. We use it to mean that a mistake or a small problem isn't catastrophic or terrible.
If you use the wrong tense or mix up his and her, it's not the end of the world. The person will still probably understand you.
So our listeners need to shift their focus from "I must be perfect" to "I must get my point across."
Let's move into the practical steps, Leo. How do we actually turn a simple walk into a powerful speaking lesson?
We have 4 fantastic steps for practicing while walking. These are real, actionable tips.
Tip number 1, I think, must address the massive listening idea.
Absolutely. Tip 1, use massive listening to feed your brain chunks.
What do we mean by massive listening? It sounds intense.
It just means listening a lot, a huge amount, and critically, listening to content that is slightly below your comprehension level, or just right. Not too hard.
Like podcasts, simple news reports, or short YouTube videos in English.
Exactly. When you are walking, you should be listening, but the key is to listen for chunks of language, not individual words.
Chunks? Can you elaborate a bit on what a chunk is for our A2, B1 listeners?
A chunk is a group of words that native speakers use together naturally. It's a phrase, not a single vocabulary item.
Like, how are you doing? That's a chunk. You don't think, how are you doing?
Right, or I need to grab a bite, or what are we up to later? Those groups of words work like one unit.
Why is listening for chunks so important for fluency while walking?
Because when you listen to chunks massively, your brain starts storing them as single pieces of data. When you need to speak, you pull out the whole chunk instead of building the sentence word by word.
This bypasses the grammar center. You're not thinking, do I need a preposition here? What verb form? You're just using the ready-made phrase.
So, while walking, listen to those easy English conversations and mentally or quietly repeat the chunks you hear. That's interesting. I totally agree.
That sounds like a much more natural way to internalize language. We are teaching the brain to speak in ready-made phrases.
Let's move to tip 2. Practice instant commentary. This is directly tied to your walk.
Instant commentary. Like a sports broadcaster?
Sort of. You are the broadcaster of your own life. As you walk, describe everything you see, but you must do it instantly, without pausing.
So if I see a dog, I shouldn't think, the dog is running. I should just say, oh look, a dog is running really fast.
Perfect. If you see someone waiting at a bus stop, you might say, that person must be waiting for the number 12 bus. It looks cold today.
This forces us to move past that internal editor, the one that checks grammar. We are prioritizing speed over perfection.
You are prioritizing fluency. You are training your mouth and your brain to work together quickly. If you mess up the verb tense, it's not the end of the world. Just keep going.
And since we are walking, we are not talking to anyone, so we have no pressure. We can practice that commentary out loud or just in a whisper if we are in a crowded park.
And if you see something you don't know the word for, like maybe a specific type of tree or a strange sign, describe it. That's great practice for getting your point across, even with limited vocabulary.
Instead of stopping and saying, I don't know the word for that, you say, there is a tall green thing with many branches on the top. You are constantly communicating.
That brings us perfectly to tip 3. Implement the 3-second rule.
This sounds like a game. What is the 3-second rule in speaking?
It's a trick to break the hesitation habit. When someone asks you a question or when you are doing your instant commentary, you must start speaking within 3 seconds. No more internal planning time.
3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Speak, even if what comes out is incomplete or messy.
Especially if it's messy. The point is to train your brain that hesitation is not an option. You must prioritize the delivery of the message over the grammatical correctness of the message.
This is revolutionary for people who always pause for a long time. It forces them into the flow state, the definition of fluency we established earlier.
If you wait longer than 3 seconds, your internal grammar editor wakes up and tries to control everything, and then you hit a wall.
So practicing while walking gives us the freedom to use the 3-second rule without the social embarrassment of pausing too long in a real conversation. We can fail safely.
We need to give ourselves permission to fail, Leo. That's a huge part of learning to speak fluently.
Let's discuss one more practical tip. We talked about massive listening and instant commentary. How about something more specific for building structure?
Good point. Tip 4. Use role-playing and dialogue rehearsal.
Role-playing while walking. That sounds fun.
It is! Imagine a specific scenario. Maybe you are at the airport check-in desk, or you are having a difficult conversation with a boss at work, or you're ordering a complex meal at a cafe.
You mentally create the other person, the waiter, the boss, the flight attendant.
And you rehearse the whole conversation out loud while you walk. You play both parts. You are Mia, the customer, and you are Leo, the waiter.
This is excellent because real conversations happen in chunks of back and forth dialogue, not just monologues.
Right, and you realize, oh, I always hit a wall when asking for the bill, or I struggle to use polite refusals.
And you can stop your walk, try the chunk again, and practice it until it feels natural. This integrates the chunks we talked about earlier.
If you realize you struggle with polite requests, maybe you stop and practice, would you mind closing the window? Could I possibly have the dessert menu? Many times, until those chunks flow easily.
The physical act of walking helps embed the rhythm of the language.
Exactly. We are integrating the physical, the mental, and the auditory senses.
So to summarize the 4 tips for practicing speaking while walking. 1. Use massive listening to feed your brain chunks. 2. Practice instant commentary. 3. Implement the 3-second rule. 4. Use role-playing and dialogue rehearsal.
Perfect summary. Now let's circle back to those useful phrases we want our listeners to internalize today. Language focus time.
We introduced 3 really useful, everyday English phrases that are great for A2 to B2 learners.
The first one was to get your point across.
This means communicating your intended message successfully, even if your grammar isn't perfect.
If you are talking to a colleague about a project and they finally understand what you need, you got your point across.
For example, my English isn't perfect, but I hope I can still get my point across in this meeting.
It's a very humble but confident way to approach communication. It acknowledges potential inaccuracy but prioritizes understanding.
The second phrase was to hit a wall.
We use this when we suddenly become stuck, mentally or physically, and cannot continue or make progress.
Like when you were studying for hours and suddenly you cannot remember anything more, you hit a wall.
Or when you are walking and trying your instant commentary and you pause for 10 seconds because your brain completely stops, you hit a wall on your commentary practice.
The solution in our context is to remember the 3-second rule and push past the wall even if you make a mistake.
And that links to our final phrase. It's not the end of the world. This is used to reassure yourself or others that a problem or mistake is minor and doesn't have serious consequences.
If you forget the past participle form of a verb, you tell yourself, it's not the end of the world. I will try again next time.
If you miss the bus because you took too long practicing your role play while walking, well, hopefully that's also not the end of the world and another bus comes soon.
Exactly. We want our listeners to be kind to themselves. Grammar errors happen to everyone, even native speakers sometimes.
The key difference between a good communicator and a frustrated learner is how they react when they make a mistake. Do they stop? Or do they say, it's not the end of the world, and keep flowing?
We want the flow. We want fluency.
Let's spend some time reviewing these concepts through slightly different lenses, Mia, because repetition helps solidify these practical tips for our learners.
Absolutely. Let's return to the idea of chunks. Why do we think chunks are more important than single vocabulary words, especially when trying to get your point across quickly?
If you learn 100 random words, you still have to figure out how to put them together with grammar rules when you speak. That's complex. That takes time. But if you learn 100 chunks, 100 ready-made phrases, you immediately have 100 ways to respond in a conversation.
It's like buying ready-made furniture versus buying raw wood. You can assemble the furniture much faster.
And the furniture already follows the rules of native speaker usage. You don't have to worry about the structure. It's pre-approved by fluency experts.
I think learners often struggle because they feel they must know the word for everything. But sometimes a chunk is more valuable than a specific noun.
For example, instead of learning the complex word indispensable, you could learn the chunk, I can't live without it. Much simpler, much more fluent.
And much easier to integrate into your instant commentary while walking. If you see your favorite coffee shop, you can say, oh, I can't live without that place.
We need to train our minds to focus on listening for these units. If you listen to this podcast, you hear the chunk, let's dive right in. That's a useful chunk.
We want our listeners to recognize these patterns and store them.
Now, let's revisit the 3-second rule. This is a hard challenge, especially for careful learners. How can they make it easier?
Start small. When you walk, ask yourself a very simple question. Maybe, what am I going to eat for dinner?
Then, force yourself to answer within 3 seconds, even if the answer is just pasta or I don't know.
The goal isn't the quality of the answer. The goal is the quick response time. You are training the muscle of immediate speaking.
Because if you wait for the perfect answer, you hit a wall. And if you hit a wall, you stop speaking. And if you stop speaking, your fluency doesn't improve.
It's a vicious cycle. Waiting causes anxiety, which causes stopping, which causes inaccuracy because you rush the end of the sentence.
And practicing this while walking ensures that if you fail the 3-second rule, it's not the end of the world. You just reset and try the next question.
Let's talk more about role-playing. How detailed should the dialogue rehearsal be?
It depends on the learner's level. For A2, keep it very simple. Role play ordering 2 items at a fast food place. I want a burger. Do you have fries?
For B1, B2 learners, you can tackle more complex scenarios, maybe a negotiation at work or complaining about a service.
The more complex the role play, the more likely you are to hit a wall. But that's good. That shows you where your grammar or vocabulary weaknesses are.
If you find yourself repeatedly struggling with reported speech during your imaginary negotiation, you know exactly what grammar point you need to study later.
The walk becomes a diagnostics tool. It shows you the problems you need to fix for accuracy later, but during the walk, you focus only on getting your point across.
We must constantly reinforce that core message. During the walking practice, we prioritize flow over correctness.
So let's imagine a typical walk. I put my headphones on.
I start listening to an English podcast, massive listening, or chunks.
I see a beautiful garden. I start my instant commentary. Wow, those flowers are very red. I think they are roses. The person who lives here must be a good gardener.
Then I think about a problem I need to solve at work. I practice the role play, arguing with my imaginary colleague about the deadline.
And throughout all of this, I use the 3-second rule. If I pause too long, I immediately force myself to start talking again.
If I make a terrible mistake, I remind myself it's not the end of the world. The goal is just to keep the words coming out.
This is a powerful combination of methods. It turns a boring walk into a dynamic, personalized language lab.
I want to spend a moment discussing the emotional side of this. We mentioned anxiety earlier. Why is this low-pressure practice so crucial for overcoming speaking anxiety?
Anxiety usually comes from the fear of judgment. In a classroom, a teacher might correct you. In real life, a native speaker might look confused.
And that confusion or correction feels painful, right? It makes us want to stop trying.
But when you are walking alone, there is no external judge. The only person hearing your mistakes is you, and you are learning to be kind to yourself.
You build confidence incrementally. Every successful sentence, even a clumsy one, proves to your brain that you can produce English spontaneously.
And that spontaneous production is the key to true fluency. We don't want robots calculating grammar, we want humans communicating.
Let's focus one last time on how important those chunks are. Give me another example of a common learner mistake that could be avoided by using a chunk.
Okay, a learner might try to say, I am accustomed to waking up early, but they might struggle with the grammar. I am accustoming or I accustomed.
Too much grammar calculation, too many opportunities to hit a wall.
Instead, they could learn the chunk, I'm used to waking up early. That whole phrase is stored as one unit. The grammar, be plus used to plus verbing, is built in.
The massive listening step, tip 1, is essential here. You have to hear those chunks thousands of times for them to become automatic.
It's immersion, but self-directed immersion. You are surrounding yourself with natural English while your body is busy walking.
I'd love to include one more cultural note, Leo, linking this idea of flow to how people actually speak.
Go for it.
In many English-speaking countries, especially in friendly or casual settings, flow is almost always valued over perfect accuracy.
We use fillers, we interrupt ourselves, we speak quickly.
Exactly. We use fillers like, like, or right? These fillers are not grammar mistakes. They are actually fluency signals. They mean I'm thinking, but I'm not finished talking yet.
They keep the conversation flowing. They prevent that uncomfortable silence that makes a learner feel like they have hit a wall.
So when you are doing your instant commentary while walking, don't worry about using fillers. If you need a moment, just say, or, while you grab the next chunk of language.
That's a wonderful permission slip for learners. Fillers are part of natural speech.
Let's review the key takeaways for today's blend. We talked a lot about fluency and accuracy.
Fluency is flow. Accuracy is correctness. For communication, flow is the priority. We need to train our speaking muscles.
We learned 4 essential tips for practicing while walking: massive listening for chunks, instant commentary, the 3-second rule, and dialogue rehearsal.
And we added 3 powerful phrases to help shift your mindset, to get your point across, which is the true goal of communication.
To hit a wall, which is what happens when you stop focusing on flow due to stress or grammar anxiety.
And it's not the end of the world. The mantra for forgiving yourself for every inevitable mistake you make during practice.
Use your daily walk, use your commute, use any moment you are alone and moving to practice this low-pressure speaking.
The more you practice speaking in a relaxed setting, the less likely you are to freeze when you face a real conversation at the cafe or at work.
This whole approach is about training your brain to choose communication over calculation.
Remember, you are building a muscle. You wouldn't expect to run a marathon without training your legs first. This walking practice trains your English speaking muscle.
That was a great talk. We covered a lot of ground today, Leo.
Yes, and we hope this helps all our listeners overcome that mental block. Try these tips today on your next walk.
Let us know in the comments how your instant commentary goes. We love hearing your progress.
Next time on The English Blend, we're going to dive into the difference between formal and informal communication. When should you use gotta go versus I must depart?
Ooh, essential stuff for B1 learners.
We look forward to blending some more English with you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, see you in the next episode of The English Blend.